we'll now be talking about trade. How can the diaspora be involved in trade so as to create wealth on this continent and for the people on outside the continent, the African diaspora? So with that, I'd like to welcome my panelists, the speakers. We do have with us back Wangeci Gitata. Also, I do see Joy Zenz. Please join us. And Patience Chindong. So go ahead and join us here in this panel discussion. I am very excited because I remember meeting these three ladies a little while ago when we were talking about how Europe and Africa, the European Africa Business Forum, and we really had great discussions around how do we build relationships, how do we do business, and then we recognized all of us were either living in the diaspora or are diaspora returnees, and that sparked the idea of saying, look, how do we continue to work together and use trade as a way of wealth creation for those on the continent and those who are outside the continent. So with that being said, I don't know, I don't see Joy joining us. Joy, could you please join us on the panel? Perfect.
She's there.
Perfect. Great, great. So what I would like to do right now as we start this panel discussion, because of time, I will not read the bios, although all these wonderful ladies have a lot of experience under their belt, but I really want to go in and dig deep. But just to start off, I just want each one of you to just say one thing you want the audience to know about the work you've been doing in regards to trade. So I'll start with you, Wangeci. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in trade and why this topic about diaspora and trade is very important for you.
Okay, well, I've been doing a lot of work in global trade, but as an employee, right? And I did that for a long time. And then now, over the last 3 years, I've been doing it as a consultant in my own business and actually providing a lot of services that will help along the global trade routes, especially when it comes to certification, right? You have all these different voluntary certifications. How do you interpret this certification soup and what works for what market? So that's really the space that I'm in. But then more recently, I've decided to do something in a product area, drum roll, and I am launching a coffee brand called Revolutionary Coffee. So watch this space, and I'm really, really excited about that. Yeah.
Wow, Wangeci, Revolutionary Coffee. Are you launching it at the Africa Wealth Conference? Can we?
Almost.
I think you need to send all of us some samples of that coffee.
Absolutely, for sure.
Because drum roll, that is great. You're really doing what I've been telling everybody, which is we need to create African brands. I mean, coffee is amazing in East Africa, so I bet the world wants to taste it. So great, Wangeci. All right, so go ahead to you, Patience. Just before we go into the questions, just one thing. Why is it you're passionate about diaspora and trade?
Okay, thank you so much, Anne and Wangeci. Congratulations for that. So I am Patience Chindong, and I am the co-founder also of EuroAfri Link. And what we do basically is that we link agri producers from Africa to European market. I am so passionate about this because I have seen a lot of potentials with African products here in Europe. The products are really needed here in Europe, but how do you get this product from Africa to Europe is the problem. And we are there to bridge that gap. And same as Wangeci said, we also advise producers where to get this certification, how to do the documentation to get your product safely here in Europe, especially here at the port of Rotterdam, without being rejected. So thank you for that.
Wow, thank you, Patience. So you're the bridge between Africa and Europe in regards to agri products. That's amazing because we have abundant resources on this continent, but arable land is one of the biggest things that we have, and we don't take advantage of it. But I'm glad that you're in that space saying, look, we can do something about it. And it's a woman who is doing it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, over to you, Joy. You do great work with the African Women in Trade, but let me have you introduce yourself and tell us why it's important that the diaspora is participating in trade to
Yes,
create
first of all, yes, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for being here and hearing my brother from the northern side of Germany, where I am, doing really well. And some of you have heard, my name is Joy Zenz. I'm the founder of Africa Women in Europe and Africa Women in Trade. I'm that woman who's disrupting the markets, who is actually one of the newest person in this forum here in terms of getting into trade and learning it the hard way and bringing my African women into trade following the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which I'm really, really passionate once it came out. And we have also done different way of investing back at home, seeing how we can support in that area, especially with the business women in Africa and combining them with the African women in Europe, which we have done over 15 years. But we wanted to go back home and see what can we do. We didn't want to come in with aid, so we came in with trade. So we have already started the Africa Women in Trade, which is it's 1 year now. How we got there, we are very happy to have networking is my net worth. I have Anne telling me about legal. I have patient here telling me now we have to teach you how to bring this product here. And I'm thinking, patient, I really don't know if I can do it. Let me stay in the service sector of trade, helping, bridging people, informing people, creating spaces where they can really come and get this information. So that's where I come in trade, creating these spaces where women and who are in trade as I learn. And I hope I'll be like Wangeci bringing a product in, but right now I'm in the service in trade. Thank you.
Great, Joy. Yes, we all have our strengths. We know what we're doing well. So you're good in connecting people. So it's amazing the fact that you started the African Women in Trade and you're taking advantage of AFCFTA, which is uniting Africans, in this case around trade and investments as one market. That's important. And I'm loving the idea that we're not only uniting Africa, but we are starting to unite Africans in the diaspora. This is a really good time I always say in history that you are an African and you can be able to take advantage of trade and investments to create wealth for yourself and your family. So going right down to the questions, I will start off again with you, Wangeci. So you're a diaspora returnee, UK, US. You have vast experience in agribusiness, as you mentioned, specifically around ethical farming, sustainable farming, effective value chains. So what do you think is the role of diaspora in regards to ensuring there's more trade between Africa and the countries where they reside? I mean, a lot of people think about the African diaspora, they think Europe, US, or Canada, but I mean, we have Africans, in Asia, in Australia, in Southern America. I mean, in our conferences, we get people from Brazil, Suriname, I mean, very many distinct places where they're saying we are connecting with Africa because of your people of descent. So what do you think is the right thing to do in that space?
I think that I think we had spoken about that in the earlier panel, that there are these amazing opportunities on the continent. And whether you choose to take a hold of those opportunities goes back to what you also commented on, Anne, which is there a framework that allows you to engage in a way that you feel your risks are mitigated to a certain extent? Is there a way that there is the resources that you have, can they be pulled together to create the impact that they can have that goes just beyond your immediate family, who is the one receiving the remittances, right? So I think it goes back to what was said by one of the keynote guests today, that all of this really just begins with the kind of vision that you have for what it is that you wish to create. But going back to one of the part of the question that you had asked was, what is the role of the diaspora when it comes to trade? And you find that some of the things that are highly traded amongst diaspora community are specific to the diaspora, right? And the reason I'm saying this is because there are certain tastes that remind you of home, wherever home that is, wherever home is for you, right? I always like to say that home is where your heart beats best. So the geography doesn't really matter, but some of these tastes that were developed when you were growing up, you look for them because they have a certain memory for you. Like I said, I'm in the product space, so I'll allow me to sort of stick to the product piece. But you find that even in the music that we enjoy, in the movies that we want to watch, right? The things that connect you back to where you grew up. But going back to the product, you also see that even in some of the products that people look for in these new places that they're living in, whether it's that a certain taste of Kenyan tea that you like, whether it's Kenyan coffee that you enjoy, whether it's chevra from Kenya that you want. You could be living in India where they have chevra, which is this spicy snack. But they have a different type of mix to their spice, which is different from what you'll find in Kenya. Or you find that there's some green grams that we really like here at home. In Kenya, we call it dengu. They're exported, they're available all over the place. But when you're abroad, you look for it, especially if you're not in the global south. If you're in the global north, these are sort of the things that you look for in what they call the global supermarkets, right? So and that's the role that diaspora plays. It is in bringing in those tastes of home to the new place that is your home. And how can we encourage that trade? How can we get you to be our ambassadors for those tastes, for those different things that we like, whether it's the Ankara fabric, or whether it's again, going back to Kenyan tea, or whether it's Kenyan tea? How do we get you to open up another market for us, the producers who are here on the continent, in those spaces that you're in? So really, the diaspora are the ambassadors of the continent, wherever they are, because they continue to connect to the continent. And in doing so, they create and open up a lot of different trade opportunities.
Thank you, Wangeci. I totally agree. In fact, when you were speaking, I remembered my first business, or my first side hustle that I did when I was in the US. I'm very interested in fashion and jewelry. So what I would do is, I'm in Los Angeles, and I would import products from East Africa, from Kenya, jewelry, home decor, clothing, and sell them in the US. So I was the de facto ambassador, informal ambassador. So I see what you're saying. Pretty much it's saying you in the diaspora go in, taste of Africa, whether it's the chevra, the sausages, the chapatis, the drinks, whatever it is, you export it, you then showcase it to the community around you, they like it, and then now you start importing more. So thank you very much for sharing that, and I totally agree. And I don't know if Joy, you have something else to add to that in regards to the diaspora being the ambassadors for trade in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, we are African women. I don't know about, I compare because I'm able to compare with the European women because we African women, we are hustlers. We always have a hustle somewhere, hustling something. I don't know any diaspora that is not doing something to do with Africa, because they say they are ambassador, either even if they're selling some jewelry small. So it doesn't matter. Sometimes they're not even making profit or anything, but just feeling you're doing something about the continent. And very recently, I started seeing, before COVID came, tourism, people bringing, is part of trade, right? Bringing people from one place to another and seeing the continent, they bring a family. And we also were starting that. And we also see the African woman, I mean, we talk about trade, but we also have to look at also the investment you're also doing around trade. Because what I'm seeing, we buy a lot of land, which I don't know. For me, I remember when I bought my first land, I was like, I've done the first thing I wanted to do ever, but I've never completed the first goal. that I wanted to get. But then we started seeing now people doing something with these lands. They start preparing. Somebody was telling me, I don't know what, they do businesses from far. They're having farming, they're making tomatoes, onions, they're having twig. They're away. Nowadays with the digital, you can do a lot of trade from here with your land. So in fact, the whole concept of all the African women I know on my network, and we have over 6,000 women, each one has something, but they never say it quite a lot, but they're very busy with their life. Of course, they're sending a lot of money that you say the remitters are huge sum of money. I also said the other day, because all my services, for example, are paid in. I do all my admin assistants in Kenya. My designer for flies in Kenya is cheaper and nicer as well. So these things comes quite a lot of trade that women can do. We're encouraging more constructive. I know it sounds like another kind of informal, right? We need to do it more formal. In fact, even in the diaspora, it's still an informal because it's not a document, not written. And the good thing that we are trying to tell the diaspora right now, and something that I was also preaching, to start a business in Germany, in Africa, it's very easy. That's how I started my model. And you don't even pay taxes for it because it's zero tax. All you need to do is a bookkeeping in and out. And you can put a lot of businesses in there so long as you're showing what you're doing, because the only thing, like in Germany, we don't like Black businesses. And most of the European countries allow this. You can do it legally. You have to go just to your own community register. It's actually the cheapest registration you could ever get, 15 euro for the rest of your life, probably, right? And then you have all these things that you have to send every year to the tax advisor. You sold this and this, and they don't matter what you do. They even don't have a name around it. You can put a lot of projects inside. And this will stop this kind of looking for grants and looking for support, I don't know where, and have this kind of diaspora money being invested in a proper way in the continent, in a productive, other than having dead capital. I tell my women, these lands, and I want to follow Robin as well, because my women have a lot of land. We can have a bank on that one. And I keep telling them, they give me those lands so that I can rent them out and they get a little bit of money because it's actually just dead there. They buy huge lands, I'm telling you, big pieces, and they're all just dead. And we cannot be saying that there is no land in the continent, and yet the diaspora are holding all these lands. So why don't we create that bank? And I'll be following her later on. So there's so much the diaspora can do more formally. And as you said, we are sending money for more consumption. Let's do it in a proper way that we can really see the continent growing. But I have to say, even if it's consumption, it's doing the most important thing that is needed in the continent. And if that money is not there, then we will be seeing a different continent right now than we see today. So it's also going for something very important, but we can do it in another way that it's also the little money that you're putting here in Germany, especially interest rate is zero. My dear, get money market fund. You get 8%, 10%, get the government building the road with that money. This is what we are trying to educate the diaspora. And the good thing, you don't have to be a Kenyan to go to do this in Kenya. You can be a Nigerian coming to invest in Kenya, and Kenya going to invest in Nigeria, because these markets are open for all diasporans out there in the world generally. Yeah, back to you.
Wow, thank you, Joy, for sharing. The challenge here is the diaspora needs to formalize the business. And there are certain countries, like you say, Germany, where it makes sense to actually set up a business, and it's the right way to do. And we need to move away from dead capital, just buying pieces of land, not doing anything. We need to go into the productive industry. I hope I got that right. We need to be producing. We need to be trading. So that way we create jobs and we create wealth. But if we just are investing in assets that are, not doing much, then a lot will be not actualized. Then what we're trying to do is create wealth for all. So thank you, Joy, for that. Now, Patience, I really love the model that you used, which is saying I'm the bridge, I am the link, but you're very specific to Europe, right? So you're from Africa, you understand the European market. So you are saying, I want to be that bridge. But can you share with us, as we're talking about diaspora and trade, and how people can create wealth. How is it people can actually use your model? Can you train people to use your model? For example, someone wants to say from Africa to the US, Africa to the Middle East, Africa to Australia. What can you do? Because I believe information and collaboration is what's going to transform this continent. Could you share with us any thoughts you have around you engaging the diaspora, then using your model so that everybody wins and you win too, right?
Great. And I am so happy you asked this question. And I am really just so happy to talk to you about it. So as I said, what we do in at EuroAfrica Link is that we link Africa to Europe in terms of trade, in terms of funding, and in terms of education. These are our three services, but our core service is trade. So when we started this organization, we linking producers and buyers. We discovered that when it comes to African producers, they are really lacking behind when it comes to international trade. Why? Because they don't actually know what it takes to sell abroad. What are the standards? What is the quality? Where can I get the documentation? How is the shipping done? How is the price? All this information. And then at the end of the day, they ask, is the product even the right fit? Mm-hmm. So we saw that, and when you come to Europe, when it comes, for example, in agri-product, let me tell you, what we are producing in Africa, they are also producing in Latin America. Mexico, they produce amazing avocados. They produce also amazing pineapples, and we do that also in Africa. So how can our products stand in the world market? How can we differentiate ourselves and make it stand? Knowing what I knew, and as I come from Africa, I knew that our product is actually the best, but we must be able to articulate that and brand that in such a way that it reflects who we are. So I started then teaching. So teaching the African farmers exactly what you need to sell your product abroad. And we do that training every month. So all of you are invited to the next training, is even this month on the 21st. So we give them this step by step, because I've attended a lot of conferences and webinars where the advice to producers is, okay, you have to get market. But my biggest question is how? How do you do that? So I decided to design this training program where I take the producers step by step, and this step by step has to be in an orderly fashion, in high quality, to help them know exactly what it takes, what it needs to be able to export abroad in such a way that you don't need to have the product, the avocado, already to start exporting, but you have all this information in you, so much so that when you engage in the import-export, you are ready. And that is then what is costing some of our producers, because they have amazing product, but they're not yet ready. And what do the buyer do? They go to somebody who is ready. And when they are buying a product, mind you, they are not only buying the product, the avocado, they are buying all the documentation that comes with it, all the transportation that comes with it, all these other things that come with export import. So that is exactly what we are struggling to do to help our Africans be ready for this market. So right now, what we are planning to do, so we train them, we show them where to get the documentations for in their local authorities. And then we take this product for them here in Europe. So I can get the product for you here in Rotterdam and help distribute that for you. So I can also act as off-taker if the buyer wants the product right at their warehouse. So these are additional services that we do. Right now, we are lobbying for funding to be able to create this amazing warehouse where all this African product will be here in Europe. In that case, the buyer will not be complaining, we want to buy, but it's just headache dealing with these Africans. I don't know what. So we want this warehouse here in Europe to make African closer than ever. Then there will be no excuse why they won't buy from Africa. And that is also why I want to invite all African Union countries, because we have to do that for ourselves. We don't have to wait on Europeans to help us do that. So we need to have this warehouse where we bring African closer, and I'm really lobbying for all of us to put hands together to help our farmers, because this is just the amazing way for us to empower them. And as Wanjiru said, if you empower somebody through trade, it is really better than developmental help. A farmer will be very happy when they sell their avocado for 10 euro than giving them 10 euro. So this is where we come in, and we want to really make that really effective, showcase our story. I talk about that a lot on LinkedIn. I ask, is there any limit what African can do with our fertile soil? And we have like 60% arable land, which is not even being used. Why should we go to work and start using this land and bringing these goods over here in Europe, which is really of high demand? You see the crisis in Europe, in Ukraine, the war, and also the pandemic. This is an amazing opportunity that has made us to realize what we do really have. Because I was asking myself, what do all these Europeans see in Africa that we Africans, we don't see? We have abundant resources, and we have to be able to make use of that to better our lives and also serve the community for a better good. Thank you.
Wow, Patience, you were just talking and I'm just writing things down because you are doing amazing work at EuroLink. You actually painted the picture, and why I said the diaspora is very important, because you understand Africa, you understand Europe, and so you can be able to connect both places. And one of the things we all have to understand, if you're going to play in the space of global trade, it's very competitive, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in Africa. I want to access the European market or the US market, but I'm competing with Latin America and Asia, right?
Yes.
So we are all competing. So people won't buy from you because of a sub-story. They're going to buy from you for value, right?
Yeah.
So how do we create African brands? How do we change that narrative that if something is coming from Africa, especially if it's agri-produce, it's organic, it is good, it is healthy, it's wellness. How do we change that narrative? And that's why it takes all of you who understand, who are from the diaspora returnees who understand it, to do that. And so when you're talking, I'm very interested in the American market because I lived there. We might talk about some partnerships with Regal Africa Center of International Trade, because we have a center very specific to international trade. So I believe after this, we can definitely talk, because we want to support as many Africans to access this international market. And if you can support them, if you can get access to market to them, if you can train them, that is really, really great. And so that, we go all full circle, right? There's a reason you went to Europe, right? And this is what your purpose is. So I'm very excited to hear about that, which then takes me, and I'm seeing a few questions, but I before I take those questions, I really wanted to ask Joy. So Joy, you are, I feel that you've worked personally with a lot of African brands, right? You're trying to take, especially women, with the African women in trade, taking their brands and then actually taking them to Europe. What can the audience take away from your experience about how to ensure wealth creation for all Africans, right? Because just like Patience was mentioning, this international trade is quite complex. Sometimes we might think it's just like doing trade internally, which is just this. Okay, I'm from Kenya, so let me just use that Kenyan thing. You just buying and selling, right? And if things are not proper, everyone looks at you like, what's your trouble? What's the issue, right? But in the international market, the standards, the quality, the branding, the story, all that is very important. So how can we change this culture? And what is it that you're doing, Joy, specifically with African women in trade, so that we can get more diaspora engaging in trade, so that they can create wealth for themselves, just like you're creating wealth as you connect the African market to Europe?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And when I got to know Patience, and I knew her even before she knew me, and I got to know her in Africa before even I met her, it's because of the whole idea of trade. Now, removing the Africa women in Europe, the diaspora aside, and I put now my heart for Africa Women in Trade. The Africa Women in Trade is a very special platform for women, and I see some people asking why women. We'll come to that later. But it's all about how do we, and I'm going to give you a statistic here that was given by actually the World Bank and the EAC the other day. Almost half of the women surveyed in Africa reported an intention to start a business within the next 3 years. Over 3/4 of them, of course, were men, but the most half of them were women. And talking about women in businesses and their products, and I'm going to go in a diaspora mindset, how we did it with Africa Women in Europe. We had to go down on the ground and find out, what do the Africa women business want? And how can we solve that? Instead of coming in like, this is what we need for you, this is what we want here in Europe. No. I wanted to know how are the situation right now? What are the issues at the moment? And the mindset of how to do businesses. When I talk about mindset is that, because the way we've seen the market in Africa, they produce products. Are they really needed? Are they wanted? Who said Europe wants that? And the most of the time I got products being thrown to me, oh, sell for me in Europe. And I said, how did you come up to such a product that we need it in Europe? And I can tell you in the markets here is loaded with the mafia, whoever are dealing with this product. But when I did what we did a survey, very important survey that we went through the women. Initially, when we started in 2020 last year, and 2021 in the beginning. And what we did is, like, women had to tell us what do they need. And they were very clear. And this is what I love the women. They will tell you exactly what they want, especially when you're working women to women. And I hope I'm answering that question to that guy, because women to women relationship is totally different when it comes to community. They're very open-minded. So they give us very clear formulas. And the first one I thought would be money, but it was not money. They wanted to sell, as that's what Wangeci has said, and patient has confirmed that they want to sell. They don't want, they have had a lot of funding. And I told them, okay, fine, you want to sell. Where are you selling and what do you have to sell? And there were all these beautiful products that came in, packed tea of coffee, Eva's coffee, and you had the handbags. I have all those products I'm mentioning here with me. And I said, let's have a look at these products, first of all, to see from my eyes. Don't forget, I'm not got in the ground. I'm in Germany. Everything is digital. I have to see through the virtual way of things. And the products were good, ready for the market, perfect labeled, everything set. Then I said, let's do this as a case study. Don't forget, I'm very new in this trade. I decided to do it, the learn by doing. It's more finding out, because Africa is nothing written how things are. Let me go through step by step with the group that I've acquired here and see how the product will come to the market. And I managed to get 2 products here as we speak. I have coffee in terms of just having them here in the process. I wanted to see the process until where I am. So the coffee, I got Eva's coffee, which came here, and they put a label with us. And I tell you, when you sell products in Germany, you don't sell them in English, right? You have to put them in German. We even helped in the translation of this packaging in German with one of my ladies here with a distributor in Germany to get them in order to see how far we're going to get with this, and to identify what are the issues along the way. We got the coffee here, and then we realized, oh, we can't get it to the market. Why? The certificates are not there. We don't have this certificate. We don't have this certificate. We said, okay, that's first of all thing, fair trade, number one. When you're having, in Europe, fair trade is a big product thing that they want to see where the product coming from. And then you have ISO, because they are going for consumption. Don't forget, we only work with value-added products. And the value-added products go straight to the shelf. They are not supposed to go anywhere. So the packaging was very good. So where I'm coming with this is that the process when we followed there, and I have to be very specific and very clear here, is the African Women in Trade, the aim is not to go global first. What we realize with all these women and the 4 pillars I told you is information. Our first pillar for African women is giving information, getting to know how are these products, where do you need to get market, and then market access. And then when you have market access, you know when you go into trade, you have to be in business already. And then follow up in terms of, if you want to grow, you need capital. If you want to start, you need capital. So we had to find out investments, how to help them to go trade. in terms of growing as well. And then that was when you have investments. We have already 10 businesses in that area that we are trying to get investments ready to trade just within the continent, within themselves first. And then we have the capacity building, understanding, and that's where patient telling women, you want to say, do you know the process? Do you really understand? And the women are the weakest people in terms of really reading and following protocols and orders. And that's why we have people like Regal Africa coming in and saying, now women, we need to get this straight, properly written, and connecting them with the right organization. So when we talk about Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that's when I came to tell the women, did you realize you don't really need to sell things in Europe? You can send them to South Africa. You can send them to Kenya from Nigeria. And as we speak right now, the tea that I brought here, because the tea was ready, the tea had ISO, it had everything, but the market was flooded with teas. We are still looking for market for it, but it was already ready for South Africa. It already arrived in South Africa as we speak right now, and almost coming to Kenya as well. We are all working on these processes, but we are following, we are doing a case study to see where the issues are, because I'm working with grassroots women, and meaning really from down to medium, and meaning that the products are ready, but I have started really, really low in terms of finding what's the issue on the ground, and then helping the women in terms of even coming from informal to formal, having it documented. We have to see what are we talking about. It's a long process, and AFCFTA is already working on opening these open markets, but the business that are already ready to go, and that's what we do. And you can, and I can tell you, I've not landed in the continent since COVID, and I've started everything with COVID. And that's why I say diaspora, that's where we come in. And once we have these products ready, that's when we merge the African women in Europe to sell these products for my women who are in African women in trade. Right now, we are still preparing the African women in trade, finding out, and I'm so excited because for the first time, we're going to meet in South Africa, Cape Town, Expo conference, and you're all invited to bring your people there, and it will be really nice, because businesses, you have to build trust, and then you have to build relationship, and then you need to see each other. Africa, we are very visual people, so it's going to be very interesting. So I wanted to package that in a way that it helps the listener to understand that getting into trade, you have to understand your market. And I chose a niche for women, and I can tell you, doing business with women is so good. And they can't, even investors love them, because even the banks love them because they pay back their money. They don't take high risks. Back to you, Anne.
Wow, Joy, I can definitely tell your passion. I know you love definitely things, but what I really took out for you as a diaspora, and that is why we say diaspora has to be engaged, is now you're being patient to teach, right? Even patience is talking the same thing. You want to teach, which is very different from someone who's in it for the money. They don't have time. And so we need patient support when it comes to trade, and we need patient capital when it comes to investment. So the key what I'm getting out from you is patience, so that we can help the businesses on the continent to access this market, because there are issues around process, market, and finance, but it can be done. It will take time, but it can be done, and the journey has just begun. And every time we kept talking about certification, I kept just thinking, Wangeci, she's the expert in this thing. She understands fair trade. So I think in this panel, we have someone who will give you access to market, understand process, certification, at least tell you where to go. So I'm really glad to hear that. But over to you, Wangeci. You're in business now, right? You just mentioned, you just launched Revolution Coffee here on the African conference. Okay, I don't say launch, but you mentioned it, which is great. So for you who has a product, you're on the continent, you want to take it global, how would you want the diaspora to engage with you so that you make sure that your product is in the shelf? How would you want them? How does that look like to you as a business person, so that patients can get put into Europe, someone can get in the US? How does that look like? Because I totally believe, especially because of the beautiful coffee that you have, people need to taste Africa, right? I always say, especially Kenyan coffee, pure luxury, taste of luxury. How do we get it to the world so that we start changing this narrative? And then, as Joy was mentioning, get them to tour Kenya or Ethiopia or Tanzania wherever coffee is grown, to actually go to the coffee farm. And, you know, so then it also promotes tourism. So for you in business, how do you see that happening? Talk to the diaspora, they're listening. What do you want them to do next? You want business?
Well, I think that it goes back to what Patience was talking about. It's really just finding those businesses and those people who are that bridge, right?
Okay.
So that and it goes to also what was said in the previous panel about collaboration and about networking, because that's the only way that I'd be able to get my product out and to have it in homes across the world, right? And especially beginning with diaspora homes. I think that one of the reasons why I really wanted to launch my coffee and to have it at home first is because we have this tendency to think that the best is for export. And for me, it's really important that the best is also enjoyed at home. You know, there's so many times, and I'm sure, Patience, you've experienced this, Joy, I'm sure you've experienced this, you know, or even those tourists that you were talking about, Joy, you know, they come to you and they tell you, oh, but I tasted these mishiris, these green beans in Kenya, and they didn't taste like the way they taste when I buy them at Marks and Spencer, or when I buy them at Aldi or whatever. It's because we keep exporting the best, and we don't want to enjoy that best when we're here at home. So for me, my first thing with revolutionary coffee is it needs to be the same amazing coffee, whether you're having it in Nairobi or whether you're having it in, I don't know which city you're in, Joy, or whether you're in Rotterdam. It needs to be the same amazing coffee, so that there is that consistency of product. And really that's where these linkages come in. It's how do we get that that wonderful product to you, Joy, to sell in Germany? How do I link up with Patience who will show me how these linkages work, and how even the logistics end of things are able to take place? So, you know, to answer the short question, Anne, I think it goes back to collaboration, to networking, to that information that Joy talked about that is provided by the network. But also, I think more importantly, as a producer, it's to be able to put our best foot forward in whatever market that product is being sold in.
Okay, great. Before I go into questions, I do have to say what I heard from you is, at least continuous theme here, is the diaspora is the bridge, right? And when you are the bridge between Africa and the rest of the world, you're able to make money, right? I always say that's a good motivator. We all want to make money. We all want to be wealthy. But at the same time, create impact back home, which is something, and I know Joy mentioned, a lot of women want to feel like they're giving back to the continent. We're moving from the narrative of aid. We are now coming into trade to make sure people are living dignified lives. They're happy, as Patience says. Someone is happy that my product is being bought versus being given handout. That's what has changed in Africa, especially the young people. So that's great. Diaspora continuously be the bridge. And remember, when you're doing that, you're creating impact on the continent. But if you position yourself well, you make the money, right? Patience makes money out of the training she does, out of the marketing she does. She makes money, so does Joy, right? So think about that. As the diaspora, think about it. You're doing good for you while doing good for others. With that being said, I do see a few questions here from different people in the audience. I do have someone here who's asking Joy, can we join the movement? And they're in Australia. So they're not in Europe, although Australia, okay, I won't go there about being British colony, but Joy, Australia,
Yes.
can they join in?
Yes, they can join. I don't know which side. Either Africa Women in Trade, we are ready for any any outside organization, wherever they are. Africa Women in Europe, as I say, it's in Europe, you're welcome. We get sometimes people who are curious to know what's happening in Europe from Dubai and everywhere, even in Kenya itself, people come as well. So you're welcome as well. We have had several events, you just missed many of them. The last one was in Holland, the last weekend. But there's one coming out to Switzerland. If you'd like to see the mountains of Zurich, you're welcome as well. But I would want to invite you to come to the trade mission. That's where we are today. Come to South Africa, Cape Town, and I'm going to share the information on the chat, how you can register and come. Coming to the expo is free because we are trying to encourage AFCFTA to trade. So coming in is for free, but if you want to exhibit, you have to pay for a fee for that. So it's an opportunity to see what market access is also there, as well as from different continents. Yeah.
Wow, travel to South Africa in October, go to the African Women in Trade Expo, and we will also be sharing that. So Joy, send us the information. Everyone who registered for the conference will get that information so they can join in. The keyword, I think Africans and the diaspora like free, but if they exhibit, they have to pay. That's what I had to say, right?
Yes. For because they're gonna cover their travel, their ticket, their accommodation. We say that's already investing as well in yourself, and then the information, you're ready to come and absorb it for free.
Thanks for clarifying, so I'm not misquoted. You said it's free.
To attend the exhibition, but
just the entrance. Okay.
But to exhibit, you would need to pay. Yeah.
Great. So the next question is for you, patients. So someone is asking, it's you mentioned that it's easier to get produce from Latin America. What would be the competitive edge to choose Africa? What, maybe just make it a little bit clear for someone in the diaspora who's saying, I want to participate in trade, but you're saying it's easier to get the produce from Latin America. What's our competitive edge?
The thing is that it's not, what I meant by that is that when you compare Latin America to Africa, in particular when it comes to international trade, they are ready. They are ready, they produce in mass, their technology is massive. I was really fortunate to work with also one, because when it comes to trading in Europe, the standards remain the same, whether you are importing from Latin America, from Asia, from China, from Africa. When it comes to food safety, it applies to everybody. And that is really very important. So people are contacting me not only from the African continent, even though that was the idea, but they want to trade also in Europe. And they are asking me, how do we go about that? Because we really love the European market. So when it comes to them, they are already ready. They have the information when it comes to paperwork, when it comes to explaining how the product is ready. How do you disinfect the pineapple, coding, waxing, all these things. But when you ask for an African producer, what is your product specification? What do you even mean by that? What are the documentation? What do you mean? What are the, so they are really, some of them are really clueless, whereas they have amazing product. So that is why this training comes in handy, so that you don't start producing, having all these tons of avocado before you start go looking for certification. It takes time. Look for the documentation. It takes time. Start before you are ready. So that is my message. So when it comes to Latin America, when it comes to their pricing, when it comes to their technology, when it comes to their readiness, as I said, it's not only the product, but all the documentation, the branding, everything that surrounds the product. That is what the buyer is buying. It's not only the product. So that is then what I noticed. And that is why I want to bridge that gap to make my African brothers and sisters producers of agri-product, which is really amazing. When I go to the market, I always like to buy pineapples. I just put it in my head that it is from Africa, even though I see, because I have farmers, especially from Kenya, they have amazing product, amazing avocados. And I really want to up their game to be able to be competitive, because buying, for Europeans to buy your product from Africa, it's not because you're an African. It's not because you're a woman. It's because your product is of quality. and the price is right, the packaging is right, and they will get engaged. But how do you get engaged if you don't know that information? So that is where we come in. So comparatively to Latin America, they are ready. It doesn't mean their product are superior to us, but they are ready to trade in international market. But for Africa, majority of them are not yet.
So, wow. So the diaspora is ready to support, like you're saying, but Africans need to be ready. And in regards to market, and every time you're talking, because I'm a banker by profession, I keep thinking it's the same thing even with finance. You keep telling them you have to be ready. You don't go to get finance just because, now you have to plan. You have to know, you need to know what the financier needs, whether it's equity or debt. So it's the same thing. Just be ready, be prepared. And if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Someone used to say that, stay ready. And then the opportunities will come. So there's someone who actually had a question around how they can partner with you. And I think you've spoken about EuroLink. Reach out to patients, EuroLink. And there's a lady, Chichi, who says, understanding the mindset is key. We need to do research and listen fast. So so instead of just going in and producing, listen fast. What does the market need? Get the information, then you do it. Instead of assuming that this is what they will do. All right. So a lot of people here are saying they would like to connect with you so that you can be able to support them. So I think this is resonating. African Women in Trade, EuroLink, people want to engage with you as the diaspora so that they can get their products into that market so that you can advise them. And I know, of course, it's for a fee, but people need to understand that is the value that you provide to them. And so definitely that is great. Now we do have a few more minutes. So if anyone has any pressing question, you can go ahead and ask. But as I'm waiting for more questions from the people on the session, what I would like each one of you to do, and I can start with you, Wangeci. This is just sort of a general question. I know we've spoken a lot about it, but maybe you can just tell us 1, 2 things you think. The question here is, what is the major role for the diaspora when it comes to trade with Africa? And how do you think the diaspora can engage in global value chains? Because again, that's the issue, right? We are not part of this global value chain and build better relations in the countries that they have migrated to. So 2 things, how the global value chain question and better relations based on them being in the diaspora and understanding those markets. Go ahead, Wangeci, let us know what you think.
Wow, 2 very broad questions and challenging ones. But I do feel that with what you've put together with this conference, we have talked about it a little bit, which I think is a good thing. I think we had mentioned it in the previous panel. Kenneth Baddy spoke really clearly and articulately about the role that the diaspora can play when it comes to engaging with the governments where they are located. And I think that there is quite a lot to be said about that. And it goes back to my initial point about how the diaspora are ambassadors, whether they are willing to or not, or whether they are aware of it or not. They are the ambassadors for the continent. And even when it comes to trade, it's the same way. Which is why I think it's great that that Joy has started what she has started, that the panelists that we'll hear from later on today have already started what they're doing, which is pooling resources together to find ways in which those pooled resources can have a bigger impact when it comes to the continent. I do think that we've also seen as a continent and even as the different countries, the power that the remittances have in our local economies. So going back to the point that you had made, Anne, if these could be directed or harnessed in a way that can create national impact, We've seen that happening with the sovereign bond in Rwanda. I think they've raised 2 different rounds where that money has been raised from Rwandan diaspora across Europe, where they've come in and they've invested in infrastructure at home. And it's done as a diaspora infrastructure bond. So you know that your remittance is not only coming home for consumption, but you have the opportunity to directly invest in your home. I guess you could call it your nationality government, and be able to have quite a wide impact because of that, because the resources are being pooled, but they're being pooled in a very strategic manner. So that would be one thing. And even for the diaspora that's out there, it's also challenging your home governments about what they're doing about it. You know, the central banks across the continent, they have all of this data that shows the remittances that are there. So it's not that they are unaware of how much money is coming into the continent or into a specific country from the diaspora. It's how can this sort of be harnessed so that it makes sense for everybody. It makes sense for those who are sending in that money. There's an opportunity for return, but it also makes sense for the government that instead of going to borrow money from other foreign governments, why not tap into the human resource that is scattered across the globe and that is also willing, and there is that goodwill already that exists. So I think that there is certainly a role to play for the engagement that is required by diaspora with existing governments on the continent, but also even with the diaspora themselves, where they pool resources and they end up in networks like the one that Joy has put together, or where they tap into the knowledge that other diasporans have, like the way Patience has the information and the knowledge about bringing products and services to the European continent. You know, she's taken the time to gather that information. She's taken the time to create those networks. She's taken the time to understand what the requirements are. And so it's a recognition that these are paid for services, but it's also a recognition that she straddles 2 worlds. And that is also the secret weapon that is the diaspora. You have an understanding of where these products are coming from, but you also have a very clear understanding about the market, and being able to act and continuing to act as that bridge remains a very, very key role for the diaspora to play.
Wow, lots that you said then. I'm loving that. You know, when you were speaking, there's something that we've been working at Regal Africa around and under the Regal Africa Diaspora Connect, because we realize diaspora is very important. In our research, all African governments are really focused on foreign direct investments, right? So they have the right policies and they're out there. Foreign direct investment, that's what's going to transform Africa. But when you talk about diaspora direct investment, they really don't have any policy. I know in Kenya we have a diaspora policy, but it's very general. But in regards to investment, and if you look at Europe, if you look at Asia, they're very specific with that. What are the benefits? What is the policy around diaspora direct investment? And I think if more governments did that, and that's what we're trying to advocate, and I'm hoping we'll be talking with each one of you, we push that. What is the benefit for us as the diaspora to collectively come together? Then now we'll transform trade and invest in the continent. So thank you for pulling that out and making us be aware around that as we talk about not only being part of global value chains, but the business relationship. Because of time, let me just ask Patience, because you are very specific on market access.
Yeah.
And you're in agribusiness, agri-produce. But we are quite interested in the global value chain because, you know, we as Africans tend to sell commodities, right? As opposed to adding value to that. What is your take on that? Because, you know, if I sell fresh mangoes to Europe, that's great. But I can also sell my branded dried mango. right? What is your take on that? Because then, of course, the branded dried mangoes have a longer shelf life. They are renowned, so it also creates, if they were, of course, done on the continent, it actually creates jobs on the continent. What is your take around global value chain and us being part of that as African brands, but also as saying, even if we're taking these mangoes and they're going to go ahead and be added value in Europe, what is your take on that? And where does the diaspora play?
Okay, thank you so much for that interesting question. So what we do at EuroAfric Link is that we want to take it step after step by step. So we are starting with commodity, meaning if you sell, for example, your mango, your pineapples, as I said, when you want to export this pineapple abroad, it is quite different from how you harvest this pineapple and go to the local market and sell. You have to wash the pineapple, disinfect the pineapple, and coat the pineapple before it gets to Europe. For me, that is value addition in its own way. Value addition is not only transforming the pineapple to juice, which is also another very important value addition. But for now, we want to start small, get everybody engaged, and invite also like the diaspora. Okay, now we have already started this and we already know the route. We know how to export. Let's take it to the next step. We can't do everything all at once, or else we'll crash. So we take it one step at a time. Of course, I like the idea of value addition, changing these pineapples to juice, or even using the waste of these pineapples for shoes, for leather bags, because there is a company here in the Netherlands that actually do that with mangoes. They do leather jacket out of mangoes. And this is also additional jobs for the women, for the people that are involved in this particular business. So I totally agree with you. Value addition is very important, but I ask myself, are we ready for this? Should I wait for the value addition before I start linking people, or I should start linking them with what they already have at the moment? Then, because I'm also a board member at the EU Tech Chamber, and there my focus is actually to use technology to add value to this product. So that is then where I will then try to see how I can add value, not only with the finished product, even starting with the seeds. Do they have quality seeds? Are these the type of seeds that when they produce the final product is needed in Europe? Because we have to work, it's a two-way stream. What is Europe actually looking for in this product? How can we make sure that we have that quality that they are looking for to ensure a continuous trade? I want people to rely on their product and on themselves, so much so that when you produce, you make a plan. I have 10 tons of avocados. I can sell this 10 tons of avocados, and the money I get from it, I build my house. Instead of waiting for other sources, because when you concentrate on this one and do it right, I bet you the money will come. So this is where we want to start. And it's not only with product. Later, we'll also go to animal feed, or the cows and the chickens and things like that, and see if there is also a market for them. I was trained at Wagner University, one of the most renowned universities in the world when it comes to agriculture. And my specialization was food law in international settings. So I really understand the import-export when it comes to these fruits, or how you produce a crop, how you process it, and how you export it. So this is what I really want to share. I really want Africans to have this information, to know it, to embed it in their trade, and to just be competitive in the world market. I want to go to the market and buy pineapples from Africa, because that is also what I will encourage. When I go to the market, I encourage my friends, please, did you see our product is in Lidl? Go to Lidl and buy pineapples from Kenya, pineapples or chocolates made from cocoa from Cameroon. All these things, this is what I want to showcase and really just empower these women, not only the women themselves, but also the men that are involved in this trade. Because I see women empowerment. If you do it only women, then the men are excluded. But we live in a realistic world where you have women and men. So I want all of us to be involved and get this done and be ready, because there is a lot out here to exploit. And we have amazing talents, and I don't want us to waste that talent. Thank you.
Wow, Patience, like a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, and you're ready to share it. I mean, that's the beauty of the diaspora. And I believe everyone who's watching or is going to watch after this conference will reach out to you, because that is what it is. You have a wealth of knowledge that we all need to know, or the people who are in the space that you're in. So thank you again for doing what you have done. And like you said, you have studied it, you know so much. I mean, I'm a believer in you studied it in Europe, right?
Yeah, at Vassar University.
Right? Yes, so that's amazing. So you really understand what it is they're looking for. All right, great. Now for you, Joy, my question for you really is around better business relations, right? It's very, very important. And historically, it's been through the Chamber of Commerce, it's been through the mission offices, you know, the commercial attaches or the trade representatives. That's the old way. Now we're saying the diaspora should be involved front and center. What do you think we need to do in regards to better business relations with the countries that you are living in? Oh, you're on mute, Joy. You're on mute.
That's a very good question, because when you're telling me like that, I'm seeing email from Gatia, yeah, Chamber of Commerce of I met her in Holland during the event, and we were connecting because there are so many Chamber of Commerce there from Mozambique, from also embassies in Zimbabwe, because I've stopped being very local, as you see, also Patient, and I like Patient, she's from Cameroon, but the avocado she's very from Kenya. You're not limited where we are going to do business. So it's also very good that we open up the mindset that you don't have to really go to only the country you come. I'm from Kenya, I'm going to South Africa, I'm going to Zambia, I'm opening those doors because this is the Africa continent of free trade. I want to build the mindset. I know everything in Kenya because I know who to run to when I hear in South Africa they're looking for that coffee of Wangeci. I'll run to Wangeci, go to South Africa, they want your coffee, right? But you will not know it if you stay in this area of Kakwa. Now, what I like about the diaspora is that we have an open-minded. We have left the country, we have come here in Europe, we have seen the things the way they are, and Patient can tell you, and that's the concept she's also using, and even having been educated there, you can see it. And I'm telling you in these terms of even, like I was talking about the example of the coffee, me as in diaspora, I would go to the shop and make photos of what I'm seeing. And I tell the coffee person, you know, right now in Europe, we're not having these machines that you put all powder coffee. You are all doing sachets, very quick stuff, put it in the machine. Are you able to put that? And she would, how would they look like, or what the best of packaging? You go make photos and go quickly send the people. And that's how the diaspora, I see them coming in terms of business ideas, especially in the value added. Value added, that's where we are coming in very strongly. And we can only do it when we work together, because value added is very expensive. It's not an easy business. And that's where we have also recycling of wastage of food we have seen everywhere. The other day, I was talking to my friend in Denmark, and she was telling me she wants to add value in it. I told her, have you considered glass? Do you know how glass is made? It's made of sand. Sand is full in Africa. Why can't we make this glass that you only need, I don't know, carbon dioxide, very simple products to make glass, to be able to conserve this food that we have, like what she's talking about. She's now working on with the avocados or even tomatoes. Why should we have only season and tomato? That's when we have tomato, and everybody is selling tomatoes. Who is going to buy the tomatoes? We need to add value to that tomato, put it in a jar, cut it into pieces. We buy a lot of these. That's what we cook here. We cook with already chopped potatoes or chopped tomatoes ready to go. These are the idea of the diaspora concept. I want to bring them to everyone who is there in the diaspora. Think of value added. What is a little added? Even if it's just adding a coat around that tomato to make it stay longer? Is it changing it? And also going into the industrialization. And I'm very happy I was given a book here for industrialization. I don't know, somebody gave me from the concept. It's a huge book. I'm looking forward to read on it. And it's how, because we are thinking of how to also start industrial parks, because industrial parks are the ones which are bringing value, but we cannot do this on our own. We know where the money is, right? Because we are in diaspora, we know we have been trained, we have been actually not trained. The society has helped us to be the best possible way, whether you want it or not. You're organized, you put your paper in order. And if you bring your concept to any of the investors, not only the funders and the NGOs, it's easily to buy because you know the best side of both sides. Yeah, and you can sell the product really well. For me, it's working together, and that's why I was talking to my dear friend Bandi, because Kenneth Bandi, because we work very closely. But he's in Hamburg, very north, and I'm very south. Nigerians, they are very good, really, really organized here in Europe, and I'm telling you. And we need to pull us Kenyans together. And that's how I'm putting a challenge to him, him and I need to come back together and see how we can even open the expo. We shouldn't be having African expo being run by European when we are here. We should be the ones running these expos and making sure our African products are on the table. And our couple patient as well in Holland, come here to Germany, and we are running after this. We even communicate, like the other day, there's so many expos here. There is the one that you went, Frutica, or you didn't manage, but there's a Frutica one in Berlin. There's another one which is very huge still to go into, it was during COVID, that is very known, and see how they do it and see how we can also do the same as diaspora. So for me, we need diaspora and we need to come together because we have the money.
Yes.
And we have the SACCOs. I said we have already started our diaspora. SACCO is already running. It had a really, really challenge with the government and official in Africa. Please, governments, make it easier for us diaspora to come. We need a diaspora desk in Kenya so that when we want to invest, we get to the right people and our work is done quickly. We really waste a lot of time with the governments, with paperwork and all that. We had a really big challenge, I have to say, with the diaspora SACCO. We are still there. We are hanging there. They've accepted us to go on as diaspora SACCO, where if we don't do investment in a directive way of developing the country, we will always be staying the consumption. And if such kind of association or organizations like ours are not supported and are not taken care of, because I'm talking about 24 diaspora SACCOs that exist, and 20 of them are just at the moment shaky because we have not been given the space. And I'll send that back to you guys and anybody who's in the government there who's a diaspora who are coming in to invest. They want to do it and they want to do it the right way. Can we have a diaspora that's doing that, helping us in that? So, and then
Joy, I was going to say there's a representative from the Kenyan government who will be coming later on. So I'll make sure that.
Yes, please pass that message. It's very,
it's very. But I was going to say, Joy, because of time, value addition is very capital intensive. It makes no sense for the diaspora to be getting 0% in Europe, in the US, in the bank. I used to be so happy to give people 0.25% return, and yet we need the money here and you can get good return. So it's just that we are not talking, we're not organized, we're not talking, but we could take this money and put it somewhere to get really, really good return. So just
that's one thing I wanted to mention there, because Europe, we are very, Brexit was put aside. So patients who are in Holland, we have this space for Europe to sit and as diaspora. So we need to make sure that we create good platform here as well to pick up where the UK left so that we can roll the ball on our side.
Perfect. And yes, and more conversations with that. Now, just because of time, I will just need last remarks. 1 minute, patience, 1 minute, last remarks. What do you have to say about how the diaspora can be involved in trade?
I want to first of all just thank you for this amazing conference. I am learning also a lot. I am living here with bag of knowledge. I want to say the diaspora, you have knowledge about the cultures on both sides. You can actually act as a bridge. It's not only in agriculture, there is a lot of employment opportunities in Africa when it comes to electricity, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to security or employment. This you can fill in that gap. You can't just believe that you can do it. Others have done it, so I don't see why I will be special. You go for it. And with collaboration, as Joyce and Wangeci said, all of us is a puzzle that we have to make together to make our continent better and more competitive in the world market. So thank you all and have a blessed day.
Thank you, Patience. Over to you, Joy, last remarks.
Yes, so as I said, thank you. And it's always a pleasure to be on your platforms. I learn a lot, especially with Wangeci as well. I'm here to learn and I'm learning quite a lot. For me, I'm telling you, if you don't know what to do in Africa Invest and you're thinking about it, talk to me. I'll show you where to go and I'll link you up with the right. They call me the queen of connections because my network is huge because of what I do. I'm in the service industry. So I would like to connect you if you want to invest, even if you don't want to go farming and all that, and you want money to work for you, create generation wealth, you can go into so many options in Africa, investment in government bonds. I'm a fan of government bonds because we need to have the infrastructure done. So if you really lost and you want to do something and you don't know how to start it, come to us. We can help you from the beginning, which way to go, link you with the right person, and then that person will take you to the next step.
Great, great connector. Perfect. Wangeci, over to you, last remarks before we go on to the next speaker.
I would just continue to say, buy our wonderful stuff. Let us all taste Africa wherever we are. And let that be expressed in all the different things that you continue to do. And that is one of the biggest ways in which you can help other people on the continent grow their wealth, but also continue to do what it is that you're doing, which is acting as that bridge, knowing that you being straddled in both is not actually a drawback. It's a huge advantage. And I would urge the diaspora to continue to play that card because it is a very big advantage. The understanding of multiple places and multiple economies is something that can certainly be leveraged. And so thank you again, Anne, for bringing us together and helping us to have these very critical conversations.
Thank you, Wangeci, for reminding all the diaspora, be that bridge. It is an advantage. So be that bridge, be that connector. So again, this was a great conversation really around diaspora and how we can trade with the continent. So I look forward to continuously having this conversation, but even going beyond the conversation. Now beyond the conversation, how do we implement it? How do we actually get our product into the global market? And I believe everybody has your contact. And if not, like I said, we will be sharing them after the conference. So again, thank you for taking your time, for sharing your expertise, your insight. I believe everybody who's going to watch this is going to be blessed. So thank you very much. We appreciate you.